All right, everybody. I'm back. I'm going to do episode 54. I um I decided to start because if you've listened to this before, I'd say I'm kind of random with my topics, and I've talked about how I don't think I'm very good organizing my thoughts. So I'm trying a little bit more today to just put some random stuff in the beginning. And so we are going to, well, I am because you don't get a say in what I do. We're going to call these the nuts and bolts. So if you work with me at the WAC or one of the tennis managers, we start some Friday meetings with nuts and bolts. And when I first started, I got really confused and still do on which things are nuts and bolts, which are and which others are important things. And I sort of just throw it all together because I've never quite figured it out. So I'm going to try the nuts and bolts approach first and get rid of the things that maybe don't have importance or big impacts on anything. So that I'm going to try that and then coordinate and try to plan things that kind of stick together, like tennis talk or pickleball, things like that. But I'm fully expecting to fail because my mind doesn't really work that way. So I actually have a plan, but I don't think I'll stick to that plan at all. But I'm gonna try. So here we go, episode 54. And I thought I would lead off the day with talking about politics because that's a really good topic that people want to hear about from me. And that's not really true. I'm not going to. I don't even talk about it at work or with pretty much anyone unless you know me incredibly close. I don't believe in getting into that. But my questions are, I think we probably all would agree we currently live in a world that's everybody doesn't necessarily like each other. There's a lot of anger on both sides of every side. I don't even think there's two sides anymore. I think there's dozens of sides. But you see and hear these things about these people who are all across the board. I just call them crazy, chaos and fighting and just that vitriol. That's a big word. I've never used that word before. Vitriol. And I'm not even sure if I used it correctly, but I kind of like it. I'm going to find ways to use that more. But just people angry at each other for their own beliefs. But in my world, I don't see that. So my question is, where are all of these people? Where are all the people that you see headlines on news and the fighting and the hatred? Where are they? Because in my life, I don't live in that world. I generally live in a pretty peaceful world, and people are kind and polite and seem to care about each other. And I don't see where all this stuff is. So I'm wondering, am I just incredibly naive? I choose to see and hear what I want to. Are they all hiding? Are people just amazing at keeping their personal thoughts private? Which I clearly am not because I do a podcast every week and put my thoughts to the world. So I'm just sort of curious, where are all these people? Because in my life, my things I do, I don't, I don't see any of this angry with each other. And the reason I brought it up is because I just spent a couple of days, quick days in Cleveland at a USPTA division event and did a pickleball certification. And I met, I don't know, dozens of new people I've never met. Ten people took my course on certifying for pickleball. I really didn't know any of them, and everyone was incredibly kind and peaceful. And we had dinner together and drinks and on the court and nothing. And so I just was curious where these people are that we always hear about, and do they really exist? So that's it. I will not be taking any questions now because I don't want to get into it. But just curious. I live in a world of rainbows and unicorns, I suppose. So that would be considered a nuts and bolts because it has no impact on my tennis or pickleball coaching or any of that stuff. Not that my podcast even does that anymore. So we're going to move to the next one. This will be quick. I tried soccer again. I watched, I don't know, a few minutes of the Women's World Cup final, and I just can't do it. I keep trying and I can't do it. The faked injuries, the rolling around in pain like you're on death's door, and then all of a sudden you pop up and you're ready to go and you stay in the game. Then not trying to win, playing for a tie and celebrating ties. I can't personally live in that world that a tie is the goal. So I struggle. Adding random times, extra time, I don't understand. It's a 90-minute to 45-minute halves, but when it's all over, the referees decide to put more on just for the heck of it. They think it has to do with all of the fake injuries, but now we're rewarding the players for the fake injuries by making the game longer. I can't get it. So I've tried, and my friend Ray Lee and I talk soccer, and I just can't do it. But I have put in some effort. So I think in 2 years, I think the men's World Cup is back, and I will try again and fail and have the same issues with it. But ties, just I can't do it. Don't understand. Someone compared it to football to me, and we looked it up, and there were like 7 football ties in the last 20 years. So, yes, they can tie, but they do everything possible not to make that happen. Soccer wants to tie, and I can't deal with it. So, I've got a new idea. Moving on. See, I already moved on. I didn't do that very well, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, my When I'm President series, I've got a new idea. I want to invent a gym, a workout, fitness place that is no technology, no phones, no headphones, nothing. If you're in the gym working out, it's you. That's it. Because I'll watch any gym I go to, and it's a majority of the people are sitting on a machine playing on their phones, not doing anything. They're just playing on their phones. And the issue I find is that if I was a lifter, wanted to be in that world, which I don't, that would bother me. I'm ready to use this machine, and there's somebody on there sitting playing on his phone. And we've had this issue. I know lots of gyms have it, that they're taking up all this space, but they're not actually using it. And so then you get the awkwardness of, hey, can I use that? And they say, no, I'm using it. Well, you're not. You're on the phone, and you have these issues. So I'm going in all the full gym, no technology, because people have to talk to each other, right? And maybe have a conversation. Hey, can I use this? Yeah, I'm not using it. I'm don't have anything to take up my time. I might as well get up and do something else. But that's my plan. No technology in the gym. I've had others I've brought this up to that told me that so many people are you're using your phone because it's got a workout on it that you're following along, someone talking to you or a video. And I disagree 100%. Everyone I look on is on TikTok, Instagram, texting. They are not using it to help their workout be more efficient or better. Plus, if I was a gym owner, you get rid of technology and they don't have that, then you've got to have a trainer. More income for the trainers. So that's my next thing is a no technology gym. Probably not going to work. Nuts and bolts. Gas prices. I drove home from Cleveland last night. I stopped at a Quick Trip, um, just past the Wisconsin border, the one I always go to. Get my gas. Probably, I'm gonna estimate 7 to 10 miles down the road. Another Quick Trip. It was probably a 7 to 10 minute drive on 94. 50-cent difference in gas prices. Luckily, I got the cheap one. I paid 50 cents less at the same gas station, the same location, a few miles away than the next one. I think I paid 3.50 something when I stopped, and the next one was $4. And I just don't understand. People have told me it's transportation costs, it's location, but these two are basically next to each other in the big picture. They're super similar. Why would one be more than the other? Transportation's the same. They're on the same side of the freeway. Everything was the same, and one charged 50 cents more. And same company, and I don't understand. And so all the things I thought I knew about gas, not anymore. I'm starting over. So anybody else got any good ideas for me on the gas prices? I'd love to hear them. My next issue is Alcaraz and Djokovic. Apparently, I wouldn't know because I didn't get to see it. Played one of the best matches ever. Top 10, top 5 from certain people at Cincinnati in the final last Sunday. I didn't see a single second because it was not on network TV. It's only on the tennis channel now. And I couldn't believe it. I looked for it. I actually was going to watch a tennis match, and I rarely watch any tennis other than US Open. Couldn't find it. I'm looking around like, what is going on? How do these two greatest players currently in the world going at it in a Masters Series championship match not on TV? And it's on the tennis channel, which I don't get. Maybe that's my fault, but I've had Hulu live forever. I get 200 channels and don't miss any sporting events. I get everything on the platform I use, Hulu, but it doesn't have a tennis channel. And so I would have to switch and get a new, I don't know whether it's Spectrum or YouTube or something else. I don't understand how the tennis authorities think they're going to grow our game when they put their best two players on a network that honestly only tennis players watch. You're not going to get casual people flipping around from a baseball game or a football game and happen to see, oh, Alcaraz and Joker in the third set. I'm gonna go on this. They're not going to seek that match out unless they're scrolling around and find it on ESPN or ABC or NBC or Fox or one of the big ones that everybody has. So I missed out on that entire match because it wasn't on TV, and I'm not going to take blame for it. I don't think that's my fault. I think it's tennis going to the tennis channel, a small channel in the TV world. Maybe I should have it because this is what I do for a living, but it's not offered to me on what we use in our home, and I didn't get to see any of it. So I can't be the only one that missed it. And you're like I always talk about the casual tennis fan who would just want to watch that match if they were scrolling or looking around for something to do, they're going to watch it. Something that intense. But I missed it and I don't get it and I can't figure out why the tennis people in the world think that's the right way to broadcast our game. I'm obviously it's money. Someone tennis channel paid more, or simply ESPN doesn't want to spend the money on tennis anymore, which is a bad thing. But that was just my. I was bummed because I'm getting texts from people about, are you watching this? I'm like, nope, I can't. And anyway, and I'm wondering if anybody else happened to miss it or even knew it was on, because I think we're losing out on those fans that maybe prefer other sports but would love to watch a match like that. So I'm hoping I'm going to look around, and I looked at YouTube TV. I think they have tennis channel, but then I got to switch everything over, and I don't want to do that. I'm old. That's too much work. I'm terrible with technology. I don't want to mess with it. So staying on tennis task. See how I did that? I also just got a drink and forgot to hit my drink button. I don't even remember what it was from a few podcasts ago. So our HP director, Tim Hartwick at the Wax, sent me a screenshot of a post on Instagram from a site called Tweenerhead. It's a tennis site. I scrolled through it a little bit. It's got some random facts, pictures, kind of keeps you up with tennis. I'd say it leans on the humorous side, but lots of random stuff. So this one, I've got it here. I'm just gonna read you off what they say this study says. Now, this study, I don't know where it came from. It honestly could be some random person making it completely up 100%. But let's pass it on because that's what we do in our world now. We see headlines and we pass them on and make them true. So I'm going to believe that everything's true that I read. So here's what it said: 3/4 of American tennis players believe that they can beat a professional tennis player. 71% of female players think they could win a game against a professional female player. 81% of all players between the ages of 18 and 24 believe they could win one game against a professional tennis player. And more than half of Americans believe their serve speed is faster than the average tennis professional. So tennis pro, I'm talking on the tour. All and all four of those are insane. I just thought they were interesting and wanted to bring it up because who knows where the people I live in don't believe this, but I hang out with coaches who have played high school, college. They've seen top level players, and we all know what the difference is, and it's not close. If I had gone out and played a pro player at any point in my life, my best playing days, I don't win a game. I'm lucky to win a point, right? And I wasn't nearly. I was a good tennis player for my little town and my state and area. I was pretty good, but I was never tricked into thinking I was going to be a tennis professional. But even to win, honestly, I don't think they're winning a game. I don't think they're winning a point. Double fault, maybe. But if you haven't been to a pro tournament, which anybody on this survey who said that they could serve as hard or win a game hasn't been to a pro tournament. And I just spent part of my trip to Cleveland was visiting. Part of our deal was there's a tournament there. I didn't even know about it. It's called Tennis in the Land. It's really, really cool. Great idea. It's a 250 level, which I don't know what that means, but it's not 1,000 level Masters tournament. But I saw Sloane Stevens, Leylah Fernandez, Garcia. There's Grand Slam champ. I think there were two or three Grand Slam champions in this event. I watched the number 98 player, top 50s. Like, these are the best of the best in the world. And I got to sit within 20 yards of them. And so the stadium's really awesome. It's kind of like downtown Milwaukee, where all the bridges and the river, and they built a tennis stadium there with one stadium court, two other smaller courts, and then practice courts. But it's a legit WTA tournament, and when you're that close, you can see how good they are and how clean they hit the ball. But for all of these people, if anybody listening to this thinks you can win a game against a professional tennis player, you should try. Go on tour. Let's see if you can do it, because I just thought I thought that post was fun, and that survey. Who knows whether it's true, but it gave me a few minutes of talking about it. Um, so I keep mentioning my trip to Cleveland, and I'd only been to Cleveland once in college for a couple days, and remember liking it, but I didn't know much about it. So I got to spend just probably 24 hours, and I was impressed. If you haven't been, downtown Cleveland is a really neat place. It reminded me of Milwaukee a lot. It's very similar. It's on the river, and then you've got the lake there. The difference is they've got the Cleveland Indians. I still call them the Cleveland Indians. Their stadium, Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Cavaliers Stadium, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, all within walking distance of each other. It's really neat. So if you're a sports fan, very similar to Indianapolis, where you've got Lucas Oil, you got where the Pacers play, you've got the Indianapolis Indians. I think they're still the Indians. Baseball stadium. You've got all these things down there within walking distance, and it's a really neat place. Restaurants. We had a social hour at a place right on the water. Really cool place. So if you haven't been, I'd recommend it. I'd probably go back. I'm not going back in the winter. It was safe, honestly, safer than places I've been, including Milwaukee. And the difference in Milwaukee and Cleveland, if you take Lambeau Field and put it in downtown, and you move Miller Park right downtown, right on the water, that's sort of what it would be like. And so if you're ever there, I've always heard Cleveland gets a bad rap, but I thought it was cool. I enjoyed it. Hardest part there is parking is horrendous, just terrible. I spent more on parking in 24 hours than I spent on food. Everywhere you go, there's no parking except for garages, and they jacked up the prices because of this tournament, and that was the most expensive part. But other than that, really nice. I'd recommend it. I hope to go back someday. So the tennis I mentioned, Tennis in the Land, I got there with some friends of mine. and we're watching and got to catch the end of Leylah Fernandez. And if you remember her a couple of years ago, I believe she made the semifinals of the U.S. Open. And so good player, right? She went on a run. I think it was the semis, maybe the quarters. She lost to somebody ranked in the hundreds. The next match on is Sloane Stevens playing the number 98 player in the world, which I didn't know who she was, but obviously I know Sloane Stevens, a U.S. Open Grand Slam champion. And it's this cool stadium. Just they built a tennis court downtown under this big overpass, this big bridge, kind of like the home bridge, maybe. I don't know my bridges down there, but that style. Um, and so they have this stadium, and there's, I don't know, a few thousand people there, and all this cool stuff. It's a legit deal. And Sloane, obviously being American, a week before the U.S. Open, not even a week, a few days, she was the favorite and the fan favorite, and she came out, and I thought it was cool. I'd never seen her play. I'd never seen a women's event before. She came out completely disinterested. Could just did not care about being there, not working hard, not much effort compared to her opponent who was fired up, bigger, faster, stronger, working harder, fist pumping, like really wanted to win this. You could tell she maybe she's trying to get into the Open. It's 98 in the world, so she's got a pretty good shot of being in it already. But just outworked Sloane Stevens, and Stevens lost in straight sets and had no interest in being there. And I had a lot of thoughts like, that's not really a good look for you, especially you've got a lot of kids in the crowd, new people, even me, I'm not a kid, but I'd never seen her play. And now I have a bad, I'd say I have a negative idea in my head about her and how she performed in front of this crowd that was 100% for her. She just didn't care. There was nothing. I even watched she'd move back, hit a ball, and as she's recovering, she's spinning her racket around, putting it in the left hand. Things I might do casually if I wasn't really paying attention. And I thought that's a bad look. Then I start thinking, because I think a lot, must be hard to be a professional athlete, and every single time you walk out there you are expected to be 100% at your best, full effort. That's got to be difficult for anybody, but an athlete with a crowd like that, it's got to be tough. But I struggle to find how you don't get fired up in front of this. And I get it's a smaller tournament, it's not the Open, but it's a cool venue with lots of people watching, great court, it's on TV. And she just didn't care. I'm wondering, does she not like, I'm Cleveland, it's a small tournament, it's a, lower level from a ranking and point and money standpoint. But don't play it if you're gonna do that, because it was a poor performance. But I do feel for those players that we watch them on TV, any athlete, and they perform poorly and we bash them. I do it with my Colts, that every single second they're supposed to be their best, and that's got to be difficult to do. Luckily, I've never been at that level, but I've taught lessons probably that I wasn't fired up about or wasn't interested in, and hopefully I don't do many of them. But to me, it was just a bad look and a bad setup for getting fans for the Open. But I do recommend, if you ever get a chance, go to Cleveland in August next year. It's called Tennis in the Land. You can find it on Instagram. They got a really good account. Facebook, really cool. It's about a 6.5, 7 hour trip from here. It's not bad at all. Great hotels downtown. I think tennis fans would really like. You get really close to the players. I actually stayed. Our host hotel was also the players, so I saw players all over the place. I didn't know who any of them were, but there were players, and there's lots of things to do. It's very up close event if you want to go see some great women's tennis. So moving on to some tennis stuff. Sort of last week I posted. I'm trying to do like one weekly video a week on things that I'm curious about, on what others think. So I posted the video about, what do you prefer as a doubles team for poaching, signals or words? I've always been a words person. I want to talk to my partner. I want to see them. I want to make sure we're on the same page. So if I'm going to poach, I'm going to walk back to Annie and say, "Hey, Annie, I think I'm going to go. Where do you want to serve? You want to go out wide? All right, and then let's go. We're set. We see each other. We've got it. Versus the signals where I put my hand behind my back and I do the open hand or closed hand or the numbers, directions of the serve, all the things people do. And for the most part, people were, I'd say, both. I got a lot of both. And the questions were depending on how long you've played with your partner, that relationship, um, how well you communicate in general. Because the issues I find at a club level with signals are if you don't do them all the time, you won't be very good at them because it takes a lot of practice to do it. And things where a big one I found in the groups we worked with last week was the net player would give the signal. I'm giving a signal right now. You can't see it, but I am. I just gave a signal to stay. And the server doesn't acknowledge that they got the signal. And then you see the look on the net player of like, what are we doing next? Not sure. Did she get it? Did he get it? Are we going? And then that creates hesitation and confusion. So a big thing I wanted to just mention is that if you're going to use signals, make sure the server acknowledges that they've got it. You can use the word yes, got it, cool, whatever you like, but you've got to acknowledge that, or the net player is going to be hesitant, especially if they're going. They're not going to know that the server is going to cover them. They've got to be clear with the signals. I saw people who would close the fist, but as they take their hand away to go back to the racket, they open it. And so the server sees two things and they're not sure which one it is. So you've got to be clear, keep it closed or open. They say, got it, then you're back to your racket, you're good. But it's that sort of mixed up open hand, and then as you move your hand, it might close a little bit or it shakes. So a lot of people do the fake. They will kind of flutter their fingers, or I call it playing piano, right? But if you give a stay and then as you move your hand away, your fingers move, that can cause confusion. So be really clear with how you give the signal and that it is acknowledged if you're a signal person. I tell everybody too, if you don't know if you're the server or the net player and you don't know, you're questioning, do we have this? Don't serve. Don't start the point. That's the server's job. If there's any question, don't serve. If I'm about to serve and Annie gave me a signal, but I'm not 100% that she's what she's doing, start over. Just say go again, signal again, walk up and talk to them. Other things that came up that I think are valid are what do you do after a missed serve? So I'm using Annie as my partner. Annie tells me she's going to go. That's all she says. And I say yes. Then I miss the first serve. What do y'all do? What's next? Are you keeping it? This is where people's minds go. Well, we'll just stay with it, right? You can't really yell same because your opponent would have seen you move a little bit. They're going to know. So does that signal cover both first and second? Is it just the first and then you give another signal? These are things you've got to work out. So I would do it if I'm talking. I'm generally going to go back and tell my partner, hey, I'm going to go on the first day on the second. Done. So when that first serve is missed, we're ready. We don't have to do anything, whatever it is. If I'm giving signals, I'm generally teaching give signal for the first. When it's missed, give another one. I think that's the easiest way because then you guarantee that communication is set. Or I've had teams that will give two signals. I might give a stay and a go back to back. That means to my partner, first serve I'm staying, second one I'm going. And that's fine too. I think the trick for all of you is just make sure you've got it right, whatever you do. I like the talking. It just guarantees it. It gives us that moment to discuss things. The problem with talking is it slows things down. And some people don't want to play at a faster pace. So your conversation has to be quick. You also have to be quiet enough that they can't hear you, that your opponent can't hear you. But I'd try it. The groups we had, adults and kids last week, they were successful. It was chaos in a lot of cases. People going the wrong direction and forgetting to go. That's a big one I found with adults is they were told to go and they're going to poach and then they forget or they don't commit. They don't think they can get it. And just keep in mind when you're poaching, that if I'm the net player and I tell my server I'm going to poach, I'm leaving my spot, I have to. I may delay that or time it at my own decision, but I have to go. I can't decide 2 steps in, no, I don't feel like it, because the server is switching behind you. So you have to. But you got to also remember, if I say stay, I can still go. Stay just means I'm not taking off on the serve. But if a ball comes by, stay means I can still get anything I want. I'm still the boss. Um, but I would recommend trying both. Try words, try signals, make up your own. I think they're very valuable. And we talked about in another podcast about manufacturing points. It's a great way to steal a point. Just put a signal up. Server says yes. Now your returner's worried about you. They think something's up and they miss. You get a free point. So it's the best way, in my opinion, to get a free point is have that conversation or a signal. And in most cases in clubs, that returner starts shifting focus to you and your partner and what you're doing, and not seeing the ball well and hitting a clean shot and executing what they want to do. They're worried, oh, they might go. Maybe I'll go down the line. Maybe I'll lob. I'm not sure what I'm doing. And indecision leads to mistakes. And using the signals and words will create that indecision. So I'm not sure what I'm going to put next week. Usually my video questions are basically what I've seen during the week or what I'm teaching, and I like to hear other people's comments. And I get a lot of comments, not on, it's interesting, I don't get many on social media. I'll post it on Instagram and get all my comments via text, or I'll put it on Facebook and I'll get private messages. But I think a lot of people, I guess, in my tennis world don't want to have their voice out into the social media world. That's fine. I like to hear whatever anybody will talk about coaching. I will have that conversations. Sticking on tennis a bit. Now this is not strategy. I think it's a little odd. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go, but I'm not sure anybody's listening to this anyway. My friend and coach and trainer and pretty much does everything at the WAC, Alex. Some of you listening to this will know Alex. He does a little bit of everything, and he and I were dealing, along with some other coaches, were dealing with a situation that was interesting and difficult and tricky. But he sent me this article um, called "Calming the Monkey Mind," and I didn't know what it was, but I read it and I find it pretty interesting. And so I'm going to read. I copied and pasted a bit. So I'm going to sound smart, but I did not write this. So, according to Buddhist principles, I am really going to strange places today. The monkey mind is a term that refers to being unsettled, restless, or confused. I have it. I think we all do. I have that a lot. My mind's always going. I really struggle to chill out and not have, like, I have to make lists. I got to get things done. And then I get things done and I have nothing to do and I get bored. And that's when I get angry and grumpy and all that stuff. But being unsettled, restless, confused, it's also the part of you that stifles creativity and prevents you from moving forward with your passions. It insists on being heard and takes a lot of self control to shut it down. And this upcoming part is the part I really think is important. It's also the part of your brain that becomes easily distracted. So if you want to get anything done, your challenge is to shut it down. And this comes up a lot. Like I'll and my students and teaching adults, juniors, any coach is keeping your students' minds engaged, because I think many adults, kids for sure, but I know it's adults because I live more in that world now. They can't they struggle to pay attention for long periods of time. That's why most of my groups, we go fast. We got to go. We got to switch gears quickly. We can't have a lot of downtime. We have to keep going, or I lose people. They don't become engaged. And having this, reading this article, it's a real thing. And I think the part about preventing you from moving forward is a big one. And on a tennis court, you've got to be able to move forward. We talk about it here all the time, is being able to move on quickly and calm things down and quiet things so you can do what's next. You can do your job on the court and not make reactive decisions versus sort of more thoughtful, planned out decisions, and you're not sort of freaking out about everything. So it gives some tricks for quieting your mind down. Meditation, not something I know much about. Running, counting, coloring. Sure. I mean, maybe those all work. I know a lot of people in our world are athletes, and I've got friends that are runners, and that is their way to get their mind clear. I have switched this summer to simply just being a walker. My running starts probably November, but primarily because I'm lazy. Not lazy, I'm efficient. That's the word I like to use. I wanted to rest my body from all the running I did leading up to the race and teaching, so the walking's helped. But it's where I can clear my mind. I'll listen to music or a podcast, and but my problem is then my mind goes to, and by the end of my walk, I've got a list of 20 ideas of things I want to do, whether it's at work or home or on the court or programming, and so I still struggle to shut it down. Talking to an actual person, I thought that was interesting. It's actually having a conversation that, with all our phones and technology, we may not do as much as we used to. Practicing acceptance, God, I'm terrible at that. I'm a grudge holder, and you're dead to me with one wrong move, and I'm trying to get better, but I'm that's one of my flaws is that. So I'm going to work on it. Helping others is, they say, is a good way to quiet your mind and make it more calm and make better decisions. Helping others, I am not good at that either. I help my cats. I feed them snacks a lot and play with them, but that's about it. Maybe helping, students and clients counts, but I'm not sure. But anyway, if you have that, the unsettled struggle to um, stay on task or restless, I thought it was an interesting article. It applied to the situation that I mentioned earlier, and I kind of like that stuff. I get it's not straight up tennis or pickleball or that kind of thing, but I just thought it was interesting, and I get to talk about anything I want here. Um, that's pretty much it. There was one article, I think I posted it on something about how pickleball is it's not good for TV. It's hard to watch, and I tried again this morning. I was flipping around, and there was no tennis on, but there was pickleball, which was strange. Could not find any tennis, but there was live pickleball, and it was dreadful. And these people playing are probably pretty good. It was some doubles tournament, and it was absolutely awful. I couldn't watch it, and I think now it's because of the variety. There's not much on a pickleball court that I haven't seen, and I don't play. I teach it, but there's just not as much variety. On a tennis court with that bigger space, I think maybe the strings, and I think they're better athletes, but there's just so much more creativity on a tennis court you can do with how you shape the ball and the angles and the shot making that I don't think pickleball can compete on television. At least it won't get me. I would probably watch soccer over pickleball, and that's saying a lot because you know how much I can't stand soccer. But I think that would probably be the reason I watch soccer. But all right, well, I think I'm done. I'm scrolling through here to see if I missed anything I like to talk about, and I don't think I did. So for now, that's going to be it. As usual, thanks for listening. It's a lot of fun to do this, and sort of this maybe is the way I quiet my mind. Is each week I get to put out some of my things in my list. So the way I do it is in between podcasts, I have my notes on my phone, and every time something comes up in a conversation or on the court or on a walk, I just put it in there. I make notes of things, and I try to organize it as I go. And this time I was a couple weeks between podcasts because it was slow to get topics, and I want them to, like I teach, I want it to show up. I don't want to randomly just, hey, let's talk about this. I want to have things that interest me, and get if it gets written down, it's good enough for me to discuss. So thanks for listening. As usual, if you want to see some of the other stuff I'm trying to do, you can follow on Facebook, Scott Ficks-Tennis and Pickleball, on Instagram. And if you want to watch random things like a cup of coffee or turkeys, you can do TikTok. That's sort of just for fun. I like to mess around with it. WAC members, we start September 5th, our fall schedule. We'll have 19 adult classes each week, 111 spots available 7 days a week for our adults to jump in and join classes. None of them require a commitment. You can sign up on a weekly basis, come in for one, and take whatever you want. Juniors all start that week as well. So thanks everybody. I will maybe see y'all on the courts sometime soon. Talk to y'all later. Bye bye.